All right, welcome back to Waste Some Time with Jason Green. I am Jason Green. New interviews every Monday and every Friday right here on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe to find out all about that and support the channel. You can also visit my Patreon link, which is in the description. You can ask guests the questions. Maybe you got better questions than me. You can do that. You can support in a whole bunch of different ways. So check that out. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, my guest today is Marge Raymond. Now, Marge was probably best known for being part of the band Renegade, which some of you know, some of you don't, which featured members of Aerosmith. It's a whole interesting story and a lot of unreleased music to talk about. Plus, she was part of the band Flame with Jimmy Crespo, also from Aerosmith. And she's had an incredible career of her own, aside from those projects. We are going to talk about all that and more with Marge right after that. Just wanna waste some time with you. Sometimes it seems too good to be true. Nobody out there to waste time with you. All right, Brooklyn in the house. Let's go to Marge.
Let's see. Doing
good. Thank you for joining me, Marge.
It's my pleasure. How's everybody out there doing? Good to see you.
So before we get too into it, Marge, I want to point out that your name has come up so many times in my career and in interviews. I managed Jimmy Crespo, and Jimmy and you recorded in the band Flame, which we're going to talk about. So that was when I first became aware of your career. I just interviewed Robert Tepper not too long ago, who was the songwriting partner of Benny Mardones. And I knew that you had sang with the late Benny before also. And then, so those are two of them. And then Joe Esposito I work with from the band. He was in the Brooklyn Dreams back in the day.
Oh my God.
And went on to have a big hit with the Karate Kid sound and a million other soundtracks. But I know these are all people, so your name has come up so many times. I'm a New Yorker myself, so it's an honor to talk to you today.
Well, thank you. Oh my God, all those people you mentioned. And Joe Esposito and I, we got discovered singing on a street corner. We had one of the greatest a cappella groups that we sang with. And it's a really wild story. We're singing on a street corner, and all of a sudden this man passes by and he stops the car and he said, "Wow, you guys are great. I'm going to bring you up to the Brill Building." Now, for those of you that may not know, the Brill Building is an iconic building. Back in the heyday of, well, we don't have a music industry anymore, but going back, your greatest songwriters were in there, your greatest arrangers, producers, anybody that was anything in the music industry worked out of the Brill Building. So we went there, Joey, myself, and Eddie Hoganson, who's a part of Brooklyn Dreams. Mm-hmm. And we're singing, and the president of Co-Ed Records. Now, at the time, they didn't let me sing too many lead vocals. So they said, wait a minute, we want to hear the girl. And at the time, Motown was huge. So they said, can you sing like Baby Love from the Supremes? I did like one little line. Baby love, my baby love. All right, she's the lead singer. So all of a sudden we're in the studio and it's like the greatest. It's like almost like the Wrecking Crew. One of those kind of studio musician types of things. You go in, you knock it out, one take. Everybody's in the same room. It's a whole different era of recording, but that's how I go all the way back with Joe Esposito. And to this day, Joe and I always say best doo-wop or just a cappella, plain old a cappella singing was him and I and Eddie Hoganson. Because I used to do the top note, and it was just a phenomenal, just a great sound. And he's a great musician.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, Marge. So my first questions were tell me about singing doo-wop and then tell me about the Brill Building, because I know I walk past it every day in New York, but I knew the average person didn't know it. It was almost this songwriting factory where talent was coming in, singles were being cranked out. And we should point out you were a teenager. You might have been 14 years old at this
15.
point.
15.
Wow. Yeah.
I was a baby. And I did not even know how lucky I was. I didn't even know. I knew nothing about, the industry and the fact that I had a manager then that took me under his belt, and I didn't even know how important it was that I was working there. I was because and I didn't even know this either. I'm musically gifted because I thought everybody could sing.
Right.
I thought everybody's born. They sing the way, they just sing. But I found out that that wasn't the case when I would have friends over and they said, all right, let's sing this. And they couldn't sing a note. Nevertheless, I would get called to demo songwriters songs. They'd write a song, but they need a demo singer. And because I could learn it instantly, record it like in 1 take, 2 takes max, I was a machine for them. So I was making more money than my father and at the time, and I'm only a kid, and my parents would have to write me a note to get out of school so that I would go to the Brill building and record. It's wild. If you ever look at your social security, like they'll give you a breakdown, like when you're ready to retire, and I said, look at what I made back in 1960, whatever it was. I says, wow. I mean, of course, inflation came in, and what was made then is like quadrupled even more now. Right. Would be worth a lot more money. But it was quite a honor, and I had no idea. I didn't know how beautiful it was until later on in my career.
And maybe that made it easier to deal in a sense, because you just assume, well, this is what kids do. I go to work and I sing some songs. Whereas if you realize the legends that you were around and the pressure, maybe it would have been a much harder situation.
I don't know. It was it comes so naturally to me since I'm a kid, since I'm a little kid. I mean, they would make me get in school. I don't know if they still do this assembly. Everybody would assemble in the auditorium. And back then you had to wear red, white, and blue, like on a Friday. Red neckerchief, a white skirt, no navy blue skirt, white shirt, and a red neckerchief. And they would always make me get up and sing, God Bless America, or America the Beautiful, the Star Spangled Banner, sometimes Climb Every Mountain. I didn't even know what they used to just get me up there and sing. Yeah. So that's why I just thought it was it was just so normal for me to do this. I was around the greatest musicians in the world. The greatest musicians in the entire world. I got to work with just about everybody from pop music, rock and roll, metal, right into classical music. I know it sounds weird, but I sang classical music in the first range.
Well, we're gonna get to some of those accomplishments because they're definitely interesting. Back in the day, at places like the Brill Building, it was almost a music factory, as we were saying, and so they market you and they come up with these ideas. And so for a while, you were Marge and the Formations, right?
Margie and the Formations. It's on YouTube. Everything on YouTube I never put there. Fans put it there. And there's a big following in England with all these girl groups. I get contacted by so many people. It's something soul. I forget. It'll come to me. But it was uploaded. And to be honest, I had one single for my entire life. And then all of a sudden somebody calls me up and says, hey, I just seen your record. My record? They said, yeah, it's on sale and on eBay. So I go on eBay and I buy up as much of my records as possible because I had one copy of the 45 that it was at the time.
It's so great.
It's all over.
Yeah, it's so great that you're able to get those. Now, at one point, they were interested in you for the Shangri-Las, right?
That's right.
And tell me what happened.
Okay, so my manager, he got every lead possible. And Shadow Morton, who was the manager of the Shangri-Las, we went up there. I went up there to audition. Now, I'll never forget this as long as I live. He had 2 cutouts, life-size cutouts of the twins. There were twin girls in that group. And they were seeking, and in the middle was a cutout with no face and a question mark on it. So I sing, he loves me, and then he reads me the contract. No boyfriends, know this, know that. And he went down the list of what I wasn't allowed to do. Now, I was already, I had my future husband I was going out with. Back then, you got, by 18, you were engaged. By 21, you were married.
Mhm.
And so I said, no boyfriends? I can't give up my love is blind. I can't give up my boyfriend. What did I know? That the Shangri-Las, they weren't even an established group at the time. I
Right.
was like, and so I went home and I'm crying. I don't want to give up my boyfriend. My manager is calling my mother and father now because I'm underage,
Mhm.
and they're going, please, you don't understand. This is like an opportunity of a lifetime. And my father says, what am I going to do? My daughter's inside crying. She doesn't want to do it. Oh, that's what he said. I'm going to be on the road for weeks and weeks at a time. And that not see my boyfriend for weeks at a time. And I'm not allowed to have a boyfriend. I said, I don't want to do that. So I passed on it. And so my manager, dollar signs, ka-ching, ka-ching. Me, I didn't even realize what it was. I said, no, I don't want to do it. I'm not doing it. So I had the look. I had the blonde hair, which I still have. I had, of course, I was like, like a toothpick, and crop top, skin tight pants. I mean, I had the look exactly what they wanted, but I passed, and I had the voice too. So it was like, no, not doing it. And you know what? It's okay. When I think about it, I went on. If I would have, I think I would have. It would have maybe kept me in some kind of a bubble. Oh, she's, you know, lead singer of the Shangri-Las.
Right.
How could I possibly do all this hard rock and roll, which I love to do? But it's funny, yeah, I just passed on it.
And historically,
Shadow
people,
Morton scared me. He scared me.
I could imagine, yeah. But historically, people who were in those groups didn't end up making that much money. A lot of those bands kind of got ripped. That contract probably,
Nothing.
yeah, they would have owned you if you signed that contract. So,
I made nothing. Even with Margie and the Formations, never saw a penny.
yeah,
So back in that era in time, nobody made money. You're lucky if they'd throw you $100, as like a salary, and then the record companies made it, the producer made it, the manager made it, everybody else.
songwriter.
No, the artist made nothing.
Yeah, and so at this time they're sort of cranking out these songs with you, and for a little while you're Paul Schaefer, who's known for the David Letterman show. He's your musical director, right?
Yeah, well, I stopped being in the business. I got married, and then I met my friend Susan Collins, who I used to sing with in school, and we used to do sessions together. I'm a session singer, so
Right.
she said to me, "Listen, Margie, I could use you on a session." So married or not, I ran away and said, "I'm back in the studio." Her and she's a great songwriter, Susan Collins, and a great singer. She formed a group called Sue Magna. Susan, Margie, Nancy. We got another woman named Nancy O'Neill, who's, rest her soul, she's not with us anymore. And we went up to Don Kirshner. Back in the Don Kirshner's, he had this big TV show. That's where Paul Schaefer was. And so Paul Schaefer then became like our musical director of Sue Magna. And then Sue Magna was just, because we were such a great, tight harmony. All the three of us had the background in a cappella harmony. And Susan wrote great songs. Just the fact that our harmony was great. We would get picked up as background vocalists and go on the road with different bands. And, but that's how Paul became our musical director up at Don Kirshner's office.
How
And then
funny!
he's just our friend forever. He's one of the greatest people in the world.
Yeah, he had quite the career with working with bands. He wrote the song "It's Raining Men" for the Weather Girls. He's been so involved. So you're surrounded by all these really interesting people, and you're talking about session work. You end up singing on some really amazing stuff. ELO uses you. You're singing on "Evil Woman." I mean, these are some you couldn't know at the time that these were going to become iconic songs, but they sure did.
That was weird. When we got the call, actually, my friend Susan got the call from Ellie Greenwich now, for those of you that don't know who Ellie Greenwich, she's the queen of pop. Rest her soul. She wrote "Going to the Chapel," "To Do Run Run," "River Deep Mountain High," which Tina Turner, made a smash out of. She wrote a slew of amazing hit songs. She got the phone call from Record Plant from Jimmy Iovine. ELO had come into town, and this legend or whatever.
Right.
Why did Jeff Lynne came in with the master tapes? Everything was done except some background vocal parts he needed. We're on about 5 songs on the Face the Music album, and what I heard was he was so enamored with John Lennon. You see, John Lennon used the Record Plant. John Lennon used Jimmy Iovine on the Walls and Bridges album. He wanted the studio, the engineer. He brought everything in, and he wanted a girls' group sound. So who does he calls up Record Plant, says, "Find me a group," And so Jimmy knows Ellie Greenwich. Ellie helped Jimmy Funk get a job over there. And then Ellie knows Susan and us and knew the sound that we had. And that's how we got the job. For me, it was just it was going to work another day.
Yeah.
But I will never forget listening. And when I would hear specific, like Evil Woman and Night Rider and Strange Magic and One Summer Dream and Down Hometown, we're on all those tracks, I mouthed to the girls, "We're on a hit record." I could tell, we're on a hit record. Because you sing so many sessions, you could.
Which ones, yeah.
I never heard phase shifting in my life. Jeff Lynne was so ahead of the game with all kinds of electronics and whatever. So I said, wow. And then a couple of months later, it was all over the radio, and then they put us on tour with them. So we went out on the road with ELO. But in addition to that, prior to them, we were with the New Riders of the Purple Sage as their background vocalist. So Sue Magna was a trio, the trio that we were in big demand because we just had great tight harmonies, and we were fast learning music.
Yeah, if you're good at it, you're going to work. They didn't have auto tune and all these things back then. You had to be able to come in and get it done. Jimmy Iovine becomes a huge part of your career. At that point, he works with Bruce Springsteen. He works with John Lennon. He ends up obviously becoming the president of Interscope at some point. But so he has the idea with you, I believe, to put Flame together, right? This is 1977, I think?
Well, let me see. Flames kind of started in 1976. ELO was 1975.
Wow.
So Jimmy Iovine and I share a cab home because he lived in Brooklyn. I still live in Brooklyn. And on the way home from an ELO session, he goes to me, you need your own band. Because I was, coming up with parts in the studio, and some of it was used, some of it wasn't. So Iovine heard me coming up with things and could really hear my voice and what I could do. And he said, as we're riding home, "You need your own band." I said, just like that, I'm going to go how am I going to get an own? How do I do that? He says, "Leave it to me." And all of a sudden I get phone calls from Jimmy saying, "All right, Marge, come to SIR. And I was working a day job. So I said, "Oh, I can't be there till 6 o'clock. I work a 9 to 5. And all my music was done after work, or I would say vacation days and stuff like that, and use it for going on the road. But most of my work was always done at night. And so he put together a band. And then I show up at 6 o'clock, and he got the rhythm section down, and then the last was getting the lead guitarist, and that was where Jimmy Crespo came in. So Jimmy Iovine formed Flame, and then auditioned a lot of people. And what happened? I lost.
No, we're looking at.
Oh, I thought.
Yeah, no, we're looking at Queen of the Neighborhood. This is Flame's debut record that comes out in 1977. What a year, 1977. All kinds of music coming out. Amazing stuff.
Crazy year, because it was disco. I was, we would come as we were. It was rock and roll, and then the disco came in which was absolutely huge, you know. And so I would hear it, and because I was so into rock and roll, it didn't faze me what this other music that was out there that we actually were competing against, but I didn't realize it at the time. There was so much great rock and roll being created in that 77, 78, 79, right up into the 80s. The 70s were the greatest time for rock, hard rock. You know, we toured with Foreigner, Bachman Turner Overdrive, Nectar. I mean, we were with a lot of great groups. And of course, we headlined, Flame headlined, because they ensconced us out in the Midwest. Don't ask about that either. They put us out there during Twister season. So, I mean, we had a whole stage collapse.
Oh, man.
And the promoter goes, we were going to open for BTO. And so he goes, listen, there's a storm coming. I says, you're not kidding. We were covered from head to toe with dust. He says, we're going to put the headliners on. And so I said, it's a Twister. There's a Twister out there. The wind and as I'm sitting in the car with Jimmy Crespo, you're on the plains. There's nowhere to go. There's cars, there's vans in the back, but there's no place safe.
Right.
So Jimmy and I are sitting in this car, and we're backstage, and we're looking at the stage. I says, Jimmy, look at the cover on top of the stage. The wind is pushing it up like a parachute. I said, it's gonna the wind picked it up, the light rigging came down, the whole stage collapsed. The roadies, you know, they tackled off a couple of the guys from BTO. One guy got really hurt, broke his leg. All our gear destroyed completely. So it was some crazy, wild stuff we went on. You know, we did as Flame out on the road. So we had a good time, though.
Yeah, pretty amazing. And you guys signed management with Lieber and Krebs, which is massive. Obviously, a big part of Aerosmith. You know, it's going to come in.
That's after we disbanded Flame.
Okay, so you Flame, Lieber and Krebs had nothing to do with Flame. That was just Jimmy. Okay.
Nope. Yeah. The way Lieber Krebs came in, what happened was, and I've done this in other interviews, and I can't get too personal about certain things, but Jimmy Iovine, as we were ready to do our third album, because there was some kind of conflict with him and somebody else in management that he brought in, he didn't want to be a part of it anymore. He said to me, Marge, I love you. I love the band. He said, but because of what went down with somebody, I know I don't want to be around. And so he sold the management to Mark Farner's manager, with the caveat that Iovine would, Mark Farner was the lead singer of Grand Funk Railroad. And so we realized that this manager really had no interest in Flame. So Jimmy Crespo and I said, this isn't going to work. Because we were so well known at the record plant, we got spec time in there. And Jimmy and I did an acoustic demo, 8 songs, Jimmy on acoustic guitar. We found this phenomenal keyboard player on a Steinway Grand. It's my voice, Jimmy's guitar, all Jimmy's songs. Jimmy's like a writing machine. And this amazing guy, I don't know how we found this guy, but I remember we drove upstate. For those of you in New York, it was up near Bear Mountain, across from Bear Mountain. You know, not around the corner for us. It took us like an hour and change.
Yeah, it's a commute.
But this guy was amazing. And so we went into Record Plant and we knocked out 8 songs because we were so fully prepared. Everything. I still have it. I have the master tapes, and you can hear the engineer going, take one, take one, take. Everything was done in take one. And so it was just a phenomenal thing. So we went, Jimmy and I, shopped ourselves with this 8-track demo, and we actually sang. Jimmy's on acoustic guitar, and I'm singing one of the opening songs of this 8-track demo to David Krebs, and he was like, you know, jaw drop, and he said, that Jimmy and I will be the front line, and we'll get a rhythm section, and maybe a rhythm guitarist.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, about a week later, Krebs goes, Jimmy, I want you to go over to SIR. He said, Joe Perry left Aerosmith. They're looking for guitarists. And I went, no. I knew right away. As soon as they heard Jimmy, they were going to take him. I mean, because he's one of the greatest guitarists of our generation. And and they did. They took him. So David says to me, I said, now what am I going to do? I said, I knew it. And so he said, well, go find another band and I'll make you the opening act for Aerosmith. I'll put you on the road with them. I said, just like that. Just like, when Iotine said, go find a band. Just like that. Just like that. You walk out. Somebody, is there a band out there that I can join? When it's in the cards and when it's meant to be, it happens. One day I bring my bicycle into a bicycle store just to get a new wheel. And the guy knows me. He goes, oh, you're Marge Raymond. You sang da ba ba down the line. He goes, my brother is a drummer in this band. He said, they're phenomenal. They're a power trio. I said, really? He said, yeah. You should go listen to them. I said, you know what? I'm in the market for a new band. And these guys are like younger than me. They're like 18, 19, 20 years old. I went and was blown away. I said, now the guitarist was the singer, but he wasn't he was a great guitarist. Rhythm section, one of the greatest rhythm sections I've ever worked with in my life, PJ Momola and Jimmy Iommi. Tommy Gerasi, lead guitarist and major songwriter. So I said, listen, we can get a deal immediately. Let me be your lead singer. And right away, they gave me a song. I learned it right away. Okay. And so that was it. We became Kicks.
Kicks, K-I-C.
But Kicks.
Yeah.
And then we became the opening act. And then Felix Pappalardi from Mountain and Cream, who produced, Eric Clapton, not Cream, but Mountain. Of course, everybody knows Mississippi Queen. He was a great producer. So he produced an album of all these songs that we did as the opening act for Aerosmith. And let me tell you, that's not an easy job, being an opening act for a huge band like that, because half the time we never got billing.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden they see me come walk out on stage. Who the hell? Who is this? Boo, we want Aerosmith. They were screaming.
Let's pause. Let's pause on Aerosmith for 1 second, Marge.
Yeah.
Let's close up on Flame. First of all, tell me about this picture I got up here, if you can see it. I see Bruce Springsteen. Tell me who else is in this picture.
All right. To the right is Jimmy Iovine. In back of Jimmy Iovine is Mike Bernica. He's the A&R man that signed us to RCA.
Okay.
To the left, you have Paddy Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Paddy Smith was right behind me as being a production of Jimmy Iovine. Jimmy's holding an Asbury Jukes, jacket, bomber jacket. So, and Alan Lanier is not in the frame, but he also was a part of Paddy's group. So he's out of the frame. So that is an iconic photo of, we did a showcase for the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, there's the suit. That's what we called everybody in the industry, the suits.
Sure.
That's Mike Bernica in the back from RCA, who signed us. So Bruce Springsteen was very supportive. He knew me from when I was with Sue Magna and when I sang with New Riders of the Purple Sage. And because we had Skip Batten and they were great musicians in the New Riders. So he would come backstage, and he knew me even then. So I've known him for a while. He was massively supportive because he knew that I was one of the first females to do what I'm doing, especially in the 70s. There weren't any women really doing hard rock and roll in a 5-piece band. I mean, there really wasn't. I mean, Hart came right after me, but that's not the same composition as me. It was Ann Wilson and her sister. They were the main two people. So you can't even put me. I can't go in their category. They did something different, and they were phenomenal. But there was nobody doing what I did, so there was no marketing strategies. They didn't know how to market me. They didn't.
Well,
No clue.
that's definitely one of the things that I've noticed. What do we do with this talent that we have, putting it out on your own? So speaking about Springsteen, though, also on those Flame albums, you get guest appearances from Clarence Clemens.
Right.
Little Steven does some arranging on the Flame records, right?
Right. He arranged quite a few things.
I mean,
He'd sit with Jimmy and as we were songwriting, he would, also be there helping us. Nah, throw that, put that in here, keep that, because he's great, Steve Van Zandt. And he arranged some things, he arranged the horns. Clarence did a sax solo we covered Frankie Miller's All My Love to You. And so, which is Frankie Miller's great. And so, Clarence did the sax solo. And also, Bruce was very generous and he gave us his whole horn section to use on the album. So, I mean, it was just an amazing camaraderie of people loving to do rock and roll. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew Jimmy. Jimmy worked on Born to Run with Bruce. Bruce knew me for forever already. So it was like just a great time. Everybody just was so cooperative and was so happy. I mean, to just help out.
Does Luther Vandross?
It wasn't about how much you're going to pay me.
Of course, different times.
Like, they just love to help out. I did so many sessions, I never got paid.
Does Luther Vandross sing on that album too?
Yes. Luther sang on the second album on Too Many Cooks. So at that point now we're over in the House of Music in New Jersey. We are no longer recording at the record plant. Jimmy Iovine took us over to House of Music. And Luther Vandross was one of your greatest session singers before he became Luther Vandross. Mm-hmm. He sings on Young Americans with David Bowie. His background vocals are iconic, but you don't even know it's him. If you look at the liner notes, you'll see his name a lot, or sometimes like everybody, my name's not on a lot of albums, and I'm on a lot of albums. So he gets called in to do Too Many Cooks with me. So on Too Many Cooks, that's him and he arranged everything. He did the vocal arrangement, background vocal arrangement, but they never gave him credit on my album. I was so mad. And every time, see, it's not always up to me, it's up to the label. And I had a list of people that I wanted on the liner notes on the back. Same with the Queen of the Neighborhood album. They left off a lot of people who were guest musicians. And when I would do a session again, Luther would see me. He would always say, "Where's my name?" He was, joking around with me. I said, "Luther, they didn't put your name on there." He said, "Girl," he said, "you call them up," and he said, "You tell them." They even left Clarence Clemens' name off, and then they had to put stickers on the shrink wrap because leaving his name off.
Yeah,
he was like huge. So leaving Luther's name off was like, and I got to sing with Luther. And then when Luther became Luther Vandross, now nobody knows that Luther has this huge belting voice. He sang this phenomenal, soulful voice that he has. And when I heard him, do his solo stuff, I was like, wow. And I was so happy for him because he was such a talented person. But for years, he was a session vocalist, just like I was.
Amazing how it starts and what it becomes. Last question about Flame. I forgot to ask, where is that stoop on the Queen of the Neighborhood record? Where was that picture taken?
I think that's Hell's Kitchen in the city. We went looking around for a stoop. Mm-hmm. And it was in Manhattan. And so as it's like looking for a location, like for a movie. So, this stoop looks good. And I'm pretty sure it's Hell's Kitchen part of Manhattan. So was a stoop. We went on there. They took photos, and we never saw the stoop again. I don't even know what street it's on, but I believe it's Hell's Kitchen.
Well, we're gonna have to
We
find
did
it.
a video too, and the video never came out. But I got to see it. I got to see the dailies, and I did see the finished product. But RCA never put it out.
It's amazing. Yeah. Some of these casualties of the time, looking back, you know, those records are definitely underrated records. They're really fun. And I'm going to put links so people can check them out, because it's never too late to discover music, even if this is music that's 40 something years old. The big power rock, Meatloaf, kind of those vocals, if you like that, you love Flame. It's a lot of fun, great stuff. Okay, so let's pick up now where we were. You're in the band Kicks, K-I-C-K-S. You're opening for Aerosmith. Jimmy Crespo, we should point out, so Jimmy Iovine tells him Joe Perry's leaving. Jimmy goes and he plays a solo on Night in the Ruts. He plays 3 Mile Smile, and he then appears in all the videos for that record. He does the touring. You guys are now, Kicks is the opening for Jimmy. And I've got to say, you touched on it a little bit, Jimmy Crespo is one of the greatest guitar players that I've ever seen play in front of me. I've seen a lot. He is completely underrated. People who haven't seen him play, he is so much more than Aerosmith, which is what he's known for.
Absolutely. I can't say enough great things about Jimmy Crespo's guitar playing, and I've worked with great guitarists. He's in a league of his own. He's also a great piano player. Like I said, he's a writing machine. He comes up with songs. Jimmy, we would, back in the day before there were cell phones, you know, we're on the wire phone, and he would play me stuff over the phone, and we would teach me song on the phone, and then we'd meet. I'd already know it. We did some crazy stuff the way we would teach each other stuff, and it was David Krebs, not Jimmy Iovine. Jimmy Iovine's out of the picture now. So
right.
Yeah, he was Night in the Ruts. And then, Steven used to bring me back out on stage after we finished opening up the show. And then Steven, quick story.
Mm-hmm.
Aerosmith never saw me like most headlining acts. You never look at your opening act. You come in after they're off, and the crew is, you know, bringing your gear up front and whatever. And you come in like 10 minutes before you're ready to go on stage. So I'm on, you know, we've done several shows, come off stage. I'd see them come in. Hi, guys, you know, BS and all that. And I would watch them from the wings. This one day, Kicks, at the end, we segued the last 2 songs. They were so powerful. And I look off the stage right, and there's the entire group. There's all Aerosmith watching me. They got there early, and I could see Steven going, like, what the fuck? You know, like, he never saw me really perform. And I mean, I know none of you've seen it, and there's really no videos out there to see it, but let me tell you, when I'm on stage, I'm an animal. I'm like, I turn into this different person. I'm very commanding on stage, very, you know, charismatic. And so I've got that audience. And so it was like Steven, Joey, Tom, you know, Brad, they're all like, and of course Jimmy is there. And then that's when Steven said, Marge, I want you to sing on Licking a Promise, Walking in the Sand, and Train Kept a Rolling. And so he brought me out, and I was singing background vocal. No, he never had background vocalists ever, but he loved me so much. And then he would see me like changing in closets, because they didn't have facilities for women.
Right.
You know, I used to have to share a dressing room with 5,000 men. So it was like, I try to get, you know, changed in. And so he said to me, Marge, you use my dressing room. You can have everything and anything. And he would see me like sweating to death on stage. You know, he always had these fans that blew air onto the stage, because the stage, the lights sucked the oxygen off the stage. And so he let me use everything that he had. Monitors, side fills, the fans, so that I didn't sweat to death. They used to give me oxygen when I came off stage. I was like half dead. And so he was very, very supportive of me, and also very, very generous, Steven Tyler. And so that's how that, of course, then precipitated when Steven kind of wasn't around. Joey Kramer knew what I could do. He knew exactly what I could do. If I could hold an Aerosmith audience, there it is. So
yeah, and so we'll point out that a little bit down the road, Steven Tyler gets into a motorcycle accident, and he's laid up for pretty much a year. He's also obviously using it this time. Jimmy Crespo talks about writing with him. It was very difficult. I think they went down to Florida, and no one knew what the future of Aerosmith was, and the band was, it was a little bit different now that Joe was gone. And so Joey Kramer has this idea for this mythical band called Renegade. Tell me how it happens.
So Steven, right, he has the accident. He's up in Sunapee, New Hampshire. He's AWOL. Joey wants to play out, he wants to play. And so by the way, that picture was created by a fan.
Yes, because that picture of Jimmy.
Fans, people say, Renegade. There is a huge following for this band, and everybody, it's in every Aerosmith autobiography. There's at least a line or a sentence about Renegade.
And well, people are starting to know more and more because it is in all the Aerosmith biographies. Jimmy Crespo was not happy with the way things ended with Aerosmith. He kind of got a bad deal, and he has never really spoken about it. I got him to do the Eddie Trunk show. He talked a little bit, but he's been very private about these things. You're sort of the only spokesperson, although Joey Kramer mentions it in his book. Brad Whitford leaves Aerosmith in 1981. He was never involved in this at all, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah, so he's gone. So, and again, like you said, this is a manufactured picture. That's actually the picture of Jimmy from the back of the Flame record. But fans are so into this band, and for a long time, people didn't even know if this really existed or how much there was. And so you're going to shed a little bit of light for us on that.
Right. So I was so sick and tired of hearing people say, well, that band never existed. I have the tracks. We actually were tracking for an album. So we did a demo. We did live demos because we had the capability of doing that. Joey said, these songs that Jimmy Crespo, once again, wrote everything. And the songs were phenomenal. And they were powerhouse rock and roll songs. And so Joey goes, let's hear what this sounds like on tape. Back then, everything was analog back then. And so he said, let's do it the way the Beatles did it. 4 tracks, bounce it down to 2. Live from beginning to end. No punching in, no overdubs, no nothing. Just live and it was recorded live. And it was phenomenal. Then we go to Power Station with Tony Bongiovi, who at the time is like, well, I got to fit you guys in because I'm recording my cousin Bon Jovi. And so we're tracking for an album. We showcase Renegade for CBS, for all these big labels. CBS turns into Sony.
Did you actually perform live for them?
Yeah. Big showcase.
Yeah.
And we're ready to be signed. That's why we were tracking the album.
And
we had label war going on.
Yeah, and we should point out, so this band is Joey Kramer, drummer for Aerosmith, Tom Hamilton, the bass player for Aerosmith, Jimmy Crespo, who at that time is the lead guitar player for Aerosmith, yourself, and then I don't want to leave out
Mayo.
Yeah, Bob Mayo. And for those who might not be familiar with Bob, and we're going to bring a picture of Bob up, but
what a great guy.
What a great also career that this man had. People might not know his name, but he was Peter Frampton's keyboard player forever. He's on Frampton Comes Alive. He also played piano on some of the biggest Foreigner songs. This man had some career.
In the music industry, somebody like him is a utility musician, meaning he can play just about anything. Just about any. He played rhythm guitar, lead guitar, keyboards, songwrite, background vocal, lead vocal. I think he could probably even pick up a trumpet and play that. I mean, there's some people, they just pick up every bass. And one of the nicest guys in the world, and funny. I mean, we would rehearse, and sometimes we'd never get any rehearsal done because all night long we were laughing, you know, joking around, doing stuff. Bob Mayo was one of the greatest musicians. Like you said, he on Frampton Comes Alive, you'll hear Peter Frampton go, "Bob Mayo, everybody, Bob Mayo on keyboard." You know, he yells out Bob's name, and Bob is just like a session musician, just like I was, but he's just across the board massively talented. So we had what they called a super group because of the amazing talent. I mean, you had the rhythm section of Aerosmith. You had Jimmy Crespo, who, of course, was with Aerosmith, was with me, was with Anaconda prior to me, is underrated like everybody. I mean, to me, he's like one of the greatest guitarists ever.
Marge, I got to tell you a quick story.
We're
doing a show here in Vegas, and we have George Lynch sitting in, guitar player for Dokken, legendary, amazing guitar player, and him and Jimmy are going to jam at the end of the night. We're going to play Train Kept a Rolling, and they're going to trade some solos. Jimmy Crespo, as you know, but the audience might not know, his playing is in his hands. Some people need effects and things. Jimmy's he can make that guitar talk with his hands. He's got such vibrato and feel. He can play anything. So him and George are going back and forth, and it's a lot of fun. And George is breaking out every trick in the book, finger tap, you know, everything you could think, every stylistic move you can think of, and it's great. Jimmy, just with his hands, is playing incredible. And at the end of the night, George Lynch says, "I just got taken to school by Jimmy Crespo." He knew how amazing, because people didn't know. They just thought he was the guy in Aerosmith for a little while. But to see him play, and Jimmy could play heavy metal, he could shred, he could play blues, he could play rock. And so just to give people an example at home, because I think some people don't realize just how great Jimmy is.
Phenomenal. I mean, Jimmy taught me a lot of things and taught me a lot about guitars too. I mean, he had a collection of guitars. He would take guitars apart, put them together, you know, and he had a special guy that would set up his guitars for him. But I learned a lot about guitars through Jimmy. But what Jimmy did was he listened to classical music, and he loved the blues. He would listen to the old blues guys, Django Reinhardt and old blues guys. And he would say, and when we would listen to, let's say, classical music, Chopin, for instance, great piano, you know, and he would say to me, "Now listen to this segment that he's doing and watch how he variates it throughout the composition. Same notes, different." You see, Jimmy learned from the masters of years and years ago, and through that he taught me also. And with that, I always loved classical music because I was a ballet dancer when I was a kid. So, you know, my first thing was musical theater and classical music, and of course the radio, pop music. But I always loved classical music. So Chopin was always one of my favorite pianists, and Mozart and everything like that. So Jimmy listened to a lot of classical music, and he really got ideas from Chopin, Mozart, Beethoven, you name it. And he incorporated that into his guitar playing. I know you might find that hard, but I just know that for a fact.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal. What he could do, like you said, with his hands, fast, soulful, could bend a string on slide guitar. He was great on the slide, great on the acoustic guitar. just, and like I said, he played piano too. So
Yeah.
I mean, he
And he kept Aerosmith together those years, 79 to
had a
84.
rough time with them.
He had a really rough time, and he did get a pretty raw deal. In a sense,
Yep.
he inherited Aerosmith's debt. You know,
Yep.
they make you they make you a member of the band, and then tell you, oh, by the way, we're in a big debt, and you have to, you know, and it put him in a tough spot. We're talking about Jimmy so much because he is incredibly private. I wish he would do this, but I don't think he will. He's retired now, and I just don't think we'll get him on here. So I any chance to talk about somebody as talented as Jimmy and let other people know, I'm happy to do it. So back to Renegade. Do you think at some point they were using this as leverage to get Steven Tyler off his ass? Like, you know, we're going to do this if you don't.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so, because it was gung ho all the way, and you know, what happened was Steven got word that we showcased and that the labels were ready to sign us, and he got scared. That's what I think.
Yeah.
He got very nervous because management was just going to go with Renegade, even though contractually they owed CBS 2 more albums.
Right. 2 more Aerosmith albums.
That's hard to get out of a contract. But there was, if Steven wasn't going to appear, they were ready to put Renegade right out there. And whenever Steven came back, he came back, and they would do it. Well, Steven, I have a feeling. I mean, I've never spoken to him about this, but he came back and he said, I remember him saying to me, "Sorry, Marge, I got to take my band back."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just recently, there's this guy, Aerosmith Outtakes on YouTube. He went to Bandcamp that Joey just did something a month or 2 ago, and he got to ask Joey questions 2 times, 2 separate incidences where Joey's giving interviews, and he brings up Renegade, and Joey said, "Wow, no." And he asked him, "Do you have the master tapes?" He goes, "No." And then he even actually spoke about it. If you go to that, to those, if you go scroll through all that YouTube stuff with Renegade, you'll hear Joey's interview.
Yeah. At one point, he claimed he did have the masters going back a while.
Doesn't.
You know. Yeah, and maybe
were lost. I'm the only one with all the. I have the cassette copies, and I have cassettes of the tracks when we were tracking. But the master tapes, you know, like the 3-inch tape, they're gone. Yeah. They were up at Power Station. So I remember back in the day copying cassettes and sending one over to Joey. But, you know, he moved several times. You know, when you move, and then he was Aerosmith was back together again, you know, and they had a renaissance. So they just blew back up again.
Yeah, and for sure. So do you think, and it's a hard question to answer, do you think we'll ever hear the Renegade music formally?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Do you think we're ever going to hear this Renegade music? Other than this, you know, you leaked out a little bit, but do you think people will get to hear these 8 songs?
You know what? That's where Jimmy Crespo comes in. They're his songs. He owns the songs 100%. Now, the 2 songs that are on YouTube were lifted from a podcast that I did years ago to just set the record straight. I said, I'm playing. There was 2 separate podcasts. I says, I'm going to let go 2 out of the bunch that we have. One more night and do it again. One More Night I've recorded with 5 different groups. It originally was on the 3rd album of Flame. Great ballad. Do It Again is such a kick-ass song.
I've heard them.
And it's kind of like I left my body when and I did that all in one take. What's on YouTube, because it was the demo. I have them here, but I have to speak to Jimmy about it. And I also have the 8-track demo that we did. I got the master tapes, which I would love to bake it, convert it, and put it out there. But they're Jimmy's songs. He owns them. So he has to give permission.
So what did he say? I can't remember what I talked to him about, but what did he say last time you mentioned it?
I'm trying to remember.
I'm guessing, Marge, that he feels like those guys are going to sue him or something. You know, Jimmy is very
Can't sue him for Renegade because
right.
he owns the songs.
Yeah.
They're just playing on it. Just like I can't demand a a lead vocal royalty from it. And in the music world, the person that makes the most money is the songwriter and the person that owns the publishing. And then you get writers' royalties. It all depends. But you see, Jimmy owns the songs. I would never let them go without Jimmy's permission. Like right now, I'm constantly bombarded by fans. We want to hear it. I said, and if you go onto these pages with those two songs, I interact with the fans and they say, it's not my material.
Well, I'm
I'm
going to
just the
text.
lead vocalist. It's Jimmy's songs. He's the only person that could give permission to release them.
I'm going to text Jimmy after this and get on him again. Unfortunately, as you know, sometimes he replies and sometimes he doesn't. He's had some health issues to deal with, so I think he's taking a little time off. But let's see if we can get it because people really would love it. And we did. I did a show with Jimmy here in Vegas where we played the entire Rock and a Hard Place album. It was really kind of, and for the first time, Jimmy was talking about Aerosmith. I think it was some closure that he needed. Those guys say nothing but good things about him. They always invite him out. He still, though, as you know, is very private. But Bob, unfortunately, Bob Mayo has passed away.
Yeah.
He had a heart attack
Yep.
while touring with Frampton. So
Horrible.
yeah, so he's no longer with us. I don't think that Joey and Tom are all that concerned. They have a very good career with Aerosmith. You're for putting Renegade out. So we got to see what we can do about it because the fans really do want it. It's one of the only
They want it.
yeah, it's one of the only missing Aerosmith things, related things, and I think that people would like it. And so hopefully, by people watching, they can find it. Because I'm glad you put the two songs out because this was a mythical band. People said, well, look, before there was the internet was blowing up. I heard this rumor that they made this Aerosmith record. Some people even thought you were going to replace Steven Tyler, that this was the move. There was all these rumors, and now we're able to set some of that straight.
If you know what, in retrospect, and before the music industry crashed and burned, if it would have been a few more years down the road, like it was 1981, if it was like say 1985, Renegade would have been absolutely huge because more women were now stepping forward and taking the lead vocal position. And if management was smart, and I always said this, and a lot of fans even said it, they said, why didn't they keep Aerosmith and keep Renegade? I said, isn't that one of the greatest questions I've ever heard in my life? Why didn't they? Because at the time, I was always, David Krebs used to say to me, Marge, you're like an enigma. We don't know. There was nobody before me. So there's no model for them to utilize as a marketing tool. You know what I mean? Given a few more years down the road, you had more women stepping forward and more people now accepting women, doing affronting, rock bands and whatever. And so now there's a marketing tool, there's an advertising tool. Even when they came down to costumes, they say, so what would you like? I said, but you're the costume designer. Well, we've never created a costume for a woman in our life. I was telling them how to make a costume for me. So it was crazy. So it's true. If they were smart and not so much smart, but if they had the foresight, they would have kept Renegade. They would have let Aerosmith finish their album, put them out on the road, and then put us out there too. They would have made a fortune. It would have been colossal because it was just a different complement of people. We didn't sound like Aerosmith. No, my voice is not Steven's voice. The music that we did was just driving rock and roll. It didn't sound like Aerosmith.
Right.
So it was in a league of its own. But it was just too early. We were before our time. That's how I look at it. We were so before our time.
And probably some politics get in the way. Maybe Steven, I want my Aerosmith, and I'm not going to have these guys.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Behind a closed door, I don't know what he said to management. It was just like, that's when they said, get your own band. After Renegade. What happened? Yeah, and then that's when I got Kicks.
Yeah, and
wait a minute. No, Kicks was before that.
Before
Renegade, and then wait, what did I do after Renegade? I joined a heavy metal band because now 80s,
right?
Metal is starting to really become big. So then I joined a band called Proton, and I did metal.
Yeah, because Rocks in a Hard Place comes out in '82. Steven's back. And Jimmy's with that band for a few more years into about '84. So he's tied up. So you do metal. How many years was that?
Let me see. I think I stopped let me see. When did Guns N' Roses come out?
'87.
All right. So just about after probably '88 is when I ended Proton and I joined classical. I did a complete 360 and went from doing Godzilla music to singing, all of the great Mozart, Beethoven, Poulenc, you name it.
You performed with Pavarotti.
I sang with Pavarotti. I was his backup chorus. For me, that's a whole story right there.
That's a pretty big deal.
If you want to fast forward a little bit. All right, so Proton did heavy metal, and it was great. I loved heavy metal. First of all, it was in the trade papers. We had Backstage and we had another trade paper. And so I'm looking through the trades to join a band. And it said, lead vocalist wanted, must sing like Dio. Ronnie James Dio. For me, that's a piece of cake. Sing like Dio. So it's like, all right. So at the time, I'm now engaged to be married. My second husband, my first husband and I split. Because me never being home, constantly being on the road.
Could be a challenge.
And, I was single for a long time. So I met my second husband. So my husband had long hair like I have right now. And so I go into this audition and they hand the mic to my husband. And he goes, oh, I'm not the singer. I was a fiance at the time. My fiance is. They went, what? We don't want a woman. I said, hey, wait a minute. Show me in your, and I had the piece of paper. I said, where are you saying you want a male lead vocalist? You said you want a lead vocalist. So here I am. So I took the microphone, I sang, and they all went, and I got the gig right there.
Is that Proton music available?
Say that again, sorry.
Is that music available?
Oh, I have Proton on a cassette.
But it's not released.
Master tapes. We done that at Hit Factory, and the master tapes of that are gone. But I have the cassette copy of an entire album. So I need to like get these things transferred. I own maybe. I wrote. Wait a minute. I wrote a lot of that material. When I think about it now,
I would think these guys would be happy. Put it out.
I wrote those songs. I wrote a lot of those songs. So, when the drummer passed away, and he was a phenomenal drummer, I said, that's it. This band can never be replaced without this drummer. Mm-hmm. And that's when I said, the band is going to fold. Well, I'm folding the band. And that's when I said, I'm going to go and I saw a thing in the trade paper, sing at Carnegie Hall. So I already, I sang musical theater. I studied at HB Studios all the time because I love musical theater. I mean, I'm an all-around kind of a singer. I can sing just about anything, from like heavy metal, Godzilla. I call it Godzilla music, to very clean music, to musical theater, to singing, Handel's Messiah. So I go to this audition. The goal. I go to this audition, and I have, you got to do 8 bars. When you do auditions for anything, you can't do more than 8 bars. So what you have to do is you paste together the verse, and you have to show your voice within 8 bars of music, which is really hard. So I took a piece from Oliver, and because at the end, it goes to this really big, belting high note. And the maestro says, "Oh, that was great." And then he hands me Mozart. He hands me a score. And so I look at it and I hand it back to him. I go, "I can't read that." And he went, "What? With a voice like that?" He said, I said, "I never studied music in my life." He went, "You, he was like, he couldn't believe it. He says, "Do me a favor." And he even wrote me a letter. And from what I heard from people in this collegiate chorale that I sang with, this maestro, the conductor, he never wrote anybody a letter, but he wanted my voice. And he says, "I want you in the first tenor section with the men." He says, "Because when they go up to a C and an E," he says, "you got such a strong belt." He said, "that will fatten up. The voice thins out for men when they get to the high part of their range, unlike Pavarotti, where he's like, phenomenal." And he said to me, "Do me a favor, please study for 1 year. We only audition once a year."
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Siri couldn't hear you. Siri was fascinated with that.
Oh, wait
question.
a minute. That's the watch. I should take.
Okay,
I
the
should
watch.
buy the watch.
The watch was riveted but couldn't hear.
The watch. So anyway, I studied for a year semi-privately, learned what's called solfege, which is elementary theory, and then learning how to sing do re mi fa sol la ti do, da 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 da, go down the scale like that. But looking at the music notes, being the conductor, you have to tell the conductor what the key is written in. It has the whole signature on the side of the score. How many flats and sharps, that gives you the key it's written in. It gives you the tempo. It gives, everything. I never know any of that. So
it's funny though, you were a rock star, on this major label, these major people, and now you're reinventing your whole life.
Yes. So I studied for a year because I said, I want to sing in Carnegie Hall. I like classic. I'm going to go back and sing classical music because I love it. And I came back, and the maestro was so happy. "Oh, you're back!" And then when he handed me the sheet of Mozart, I'm like, and I'm singing in solfege, meaning do ti la fa mi. You're doing it and like that, and I get stuck, and he's pushing me. The pianist is giving me the note, so I would sing it. He pushed me through, and let me tell you, it was baptism by fire. First rehearsal, I'm sitting with people with doctoral degrees, master degrees in music. Their whole life has been studying music to sing in such an elite chorus. And then Pavarotti comes along and says, I'm doing the PBS shows on TV, and I'm doing the Richard Tucker galas at Lincoln Center. I need to have a backup chorus for all the big arias that he sang. So he heard us, and he used us for years, and I got to sing with him. Let me tell you, the man was the most amazing opera singer ever. And when he found out I was a first tenor, because he's a first tenor, and he said, it was an Italian accent, "So tell me all about this first tenor, you being a woman is a first tenor." Because he would see me with the bow tie and a suit on. And if there was a European conductor, they don't believe in women first tenors. And I said, well, the maestro who conducts the chorale said that my voice would fill out the high C's and E's. He said, "Very smart maestro." He said, and then you'll see pictures of me backstage with Pavarotti. He was like, he was talking shop with me, just like, when I was on the road talking shop with Robert Plant about, well, how do you keep your high voice, So it was like, Pavarotti I would sit there after the cameras were off for the TV shows. The audience never let this man stop. They gave him 500 encores, and he would always end with Nessun Dorma. Oh, Nessun Dorma is one of his signature songs. One night at Lincoln Center, there was such a phenomenal energy coming from the audience. It felt like a hurricane of wind, and it pinned me back. Like as they were applaud, they gave standing ovations, and they would applaud for 15 minutes, and the energy. I was pinned to my chair. I was like, never felt that in my life, and I've played the biggest arenas in the world, and I've heard the biggest audiences in the world, but singing with that man and with the energy that came from the Metropolitan Opera that night, it was just unbelievable. And with that chorale, I got to sing with Paul McCartney too. I did the Liverpool oratorio that McCartney wrote with a God forgive me, I forget the guy's name, but he helped him because McCartney can't read and write music either. Mm-hmm. So he's in the same boat with me. So he had all this idea. He needed somebody to score his music. And when he came to New York and debuted it, he used the chorus that I was singing in. He brought the Liverpool Symphony Orchestra with him, but not the Liverpool Oratorio group. So he used us, which was called the Collegiate Chorale at the time. So I got to talk to Paul McCartney.
I don't think anybody alive other than you can say they sang with Steven Tyler, Paul McCartney, and Pavarotti. Those are just three. I'm sure that I'm missing I don't know about bigger, but other things. It's been some career. I want to talk a little bit about what you've been doing more recently, and it's interesting because we've had a band generation gap that you were doing for quite some time, where you perform all kinds of music, a lot of show tunes and things. It's very popular in New York. Are you still doing that? I know it's a weird time.
I'm working. In fact, I'm working Saturday night. We were an 8-piece band with a horn section. I'm with this group 31 years.
Wow.
But in addition, but we're no longer an 8-piece group. It's just a duet now. And we use all of the, outboard gear that is, all the great digital stuff that we have now. So we can sound like an 8-piece band. And so we play locally. We've downsized ourselves. We have fun. We do. I do cover music. Listen, I love singing Freddie Mercury. Yeah. I love singing Queen.
And you can do it.
Oh, and I sing it, man. You know what? My mentors in music are men. Well, because there's no women.
Right.
So I would study Freddie Mercury because Freddie Mercury, if you listen, to his recordings, and Jimmy and I would even go watch Queen live. And I'd elbow Jimmy. I go, look, he just diverted to a different note. I said, that's how he's keeping longevity of his high end. Instead of going for the high note constantly, he is the master of diversion, vocal diversion, meaning instead of going, he'd go to a different note rather than push the vocal. And he did that a lot. But as a vocalist, I could hear it. I said, tonight I'm pulling a Freddie. And I named certain things that I would do after Freddie Mercury. And Mark Farner, Grand Funk Railroad, great stage presence. He played to the last row in the balcony. So I used him as a performer. Him and Freddie Mercury. They went from stage left to stage right on the. I was known to fly off the band riser all the time. I was a black belt in karate, so I used a lot of my martial arts on stage. Not like Elvis Presley, but right. I used to do a lot of with the downbeats of the drums. I mean, my fist would go up. I would roundhouse kick. I would jump off the riser, kicking, and I was a lunatic. So men were my mentors. Watching men, Rod Stewart. A great entertainer, great front person. I mean, he was just charismatic on stage. So I watched men all the time. Right. And that's who I am. Yeah, I don't emulate them, but I used what they had.
To sing that stuff now with Generation.
Well, not so much sing it, but as a performer, how to utilize a stage. Either you're born with charisma or you're not. You either have it or you don't. I've seen it 100 times. You either have it or you don't. Charismatic, where you can hold an audience.
Right.
As far as vocal longevity on stage and tricks, as we call it. Now we got all this digital stuff, which I never use any of it, except for, like, you know, we use harmonizers now for background vocals. A harmonizer, I'll sing the lead note and then I'll have a note below me and 2 notes above me. You have these machines now that will sing a 4-part harmony. All I have to do is sing 1 note, and my associate that I sing with, he'll sing the lead and I do the background vocals. It's vice versa. When I sing lead, he's doing the background vocals. If you've ever heard us do Queen and we do Bohemian Rhapsody, how are we getting that enormous sound? That's a harmonizer.
Yeah.
But I'm singing lead vocal. There's no effect on my voice. That's just me singing Freddie.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Do people ever come out to these Generation Gap gigs to ask you to sign their Flame record or ask you about Renegade?
No.
They're not aware.
No, because we sing cover music. We sing oldies. So my career, there are people, but few and far between. I'm known for singing all these oldies that people, they want to hear the older music from the 70s and 80s and 90s and 60s and 50s doo-wop. They want to hear it all because it doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
So we do all that. But I do have fans who send me in the mail albums for me to sign. They got they got the postage back. I don't care. So many things. I get, bless you. I get fans sending me stuff all the times. In fact, I have one guy from Brazil who wants me to send. I said, I have no more headshots to send out. He said, I don't care. He says, make a Xerox copy of the back of like ELO album. He's a big ELO fan. Mm-hmm. And just autograph anything for me. And he gives me his name and address. So I get that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah,
people have a following, but people who come to see me sing, if they've heard me sing rock and roll, like I'll do "Oh Darling" and from the Beatles, and I really rock it up. People will say, "Why we want to hear Marge sing that?" And sometimes my associate, he'll go, "No, not tonight." You know. So
I think it's great that people can see. I think we got to get this Renegade music out there so people can be exposed to it. None of us are getting any younger. Life is short. People want to hear it, and I think it'll be exciting. And
I believe in leaving a legacy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Jimmy should leave a legacy too. That's his stuff. He wrote it. I sang it. I don't think there's many people that could. I honestly, it could probably be covered by other people, but I sing it in such a way that.
I'm going to try to work him, but you know he's difficult sometimes. I had him doing press, and we would get in the car to go to the interview, and he'd always say, maybe we should call it off, go home. The music industry really beat Jimmy up, and I really was like, it was like I was Ed Wood and he was Bela Lugosi, and I was really pushing him. You got to get out there, Jimmy. We're going to be great. And when he did, and when he played, it was amazing. But that industry took a toll on him. But I really hope that he will get this out because people do deserve to hear it, and he deserves to be recognized. As do you.
I agree. And the 8-track demo that we did, Jimmy said to me, and I agree with him, is the greatest session work that him and I have ever done, because we were so prepared musically. And we did it all in one take, and it was one of the greatest sessions him and I ever did because of that preparation. And the songs were phenomenal songs. And he really, really loved it as much as I did, and along with the pianist that played with us. So he even said that was his favorite session. And so I always said to him, I have the tape, I have to bake it and transfer it. And I remember him years ago saying to me, oh, Margie, that's going to cost you too much money and whatever. I said, right now it's like, I don't care how much it costs. I bet you I can get people to back me on it, even if I had to. But I know so many people that would do me favors. I
Jimmy's
have to get Jimmy's permission because it's his music. I can't do nothing. Otherwise, it's against the law.
Jimmy is sometimes like a Puerto Rican Woody Allen. You know what I mean? He's if that makes sense to people. But Marge, last thing. What about the cemetery tours? Do you still do that?
Oh my God, yeah. You know, I have so many hobbies, and one of them is history, and I also was a national park ranger. I love nature, and I love history. So Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn, New York, is the first cemetery for New York City, 1838.
Wow.
When everybody was living at the lower end of Manhattan, they stopped all the burials on Manhattan. We need a cemetery for New York City. So it's a Victorian cemetery. It has the most famous people in the world buried there, including Leonard Bernstein from the New York Philharmonic, Paul Jabara, who sang It's Raining Men, like we spoke about him with Paul Schaefer as the writer. I mean, we've got every inventor that you can think of. The guy that invented the pencil, the safety pin, the sewing machine. There's animals buried in there. There's the great pioneers that went across. You know, we've got Sitting Bull's lawyer in there when they were fighting. You know, when we took all the land away from the Indians. We have Native American Indian in there, princess that died. So I give tours. And right now, because of COVID, I used to do it on a trolley. Now we do walking tours at night. And I open up the catacombs. The catacombs were built in the 1850s. So it's like an apartment house for burials above ground because everybody was afraid of being buried alive back then because they didn't have medicine like we have now. So back then, you could be buried in a safety casket. And if you woke up in your coffin, you could get out. So that's a whole big story. So
I think it's great. When I come back to New York, I love a good cemetery. New York has some of the most historic. People don't realize in Manhattan, you can't be buried in Manhattan. There's no cemeteries left. Yeah. So it spreads out. The Bronx and Brooklyn have some of the most iconic cemeteries and people and history. And so I think it's great that people can take a tour with you and see this great location.
And I sing.
And wow, look at that.
I sing when we go to Leonard Bernstein. In fact, German TV did a whole big shoot. I'm in a lot of things, you know, from there. But I always tribute Leonard Bernstein with. I stopped singing somewhere because it was making too many people cry. But us, there's a place for us. You know, I'm singing that in the cemetery. There's a place for us. So now I sing the Jet song, the first verse and the chorus, and I have everybody snap their fingers, and they love that. You know, da 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 dum, da 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 dum dum. And so I tribute Maestro with just the first. It's not even a minute long. And when you're a jet all the way. So it's like people love that. And so the new movie's coming out. Yeah. And so now I've been singing by Leonard Bernstein's grave for the past 14 years. So and sometimes I'll break into song like when we passed Fred Ebb, who wrote New York, New York. Start spreading the news. We're leaving today. So, you know, Liza Minnelli made it big with Cabaret. So he's buried. I'm telling you, everybody's buried at Greenwood. Of anybody of any you know, they're famous or notoriety. Got people from the mob in there. I mean, you got.
Well, if people are watching or ever in Brooklyn or in New York City.
God, just listen, I'm on all social media. Marge Raymond. Find me, message me, and I'll tell you my schedules for different things. Find me. Marge, you'll see my whole career come up. MargeRaymond.com. Well, my website's old. But Marge Raymond, just Google me and you'll see everything come up.
Yeah, we'll put the links too so people can check it out because there's so much fun stuff. Marge, I really appreciate you spending a little time with us today. What a fascinating career. I'm glad that you're still doing it. It's great when you have those kind of stories. And we'll hope that the Renegade music comes out and and people can get in touch with you.
I hope you can get in touch with me. I plan to do like a book or a live something on the internet so that, you know, because everybody lives on their phone now and on the internet. Not many people read books anymore, but the title will be The Most Famous Unknown Rock Star, me. So I have stories for days.
Yeah, we just scratched the surface.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Stories for days. And that's how I want my biography to be, like almost like an interview. So tell me. And then I can go, so it can spark my memory. My memory bank is loaded with thousands of songs and incidences from when I sang and who I sang with. All you got to do is mention something and boom, the whole story will emerge. So that's how I want this book or internet story to come out. The Most Famous Unknown Rock Star. So that's me.
I think there'll be a lot of interest. Thank you so much, Marge.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you, everybody. Love you guys.
Bye-bye.